Hey, what's up guys, aarava here, and welcome back to another episode of my F1 22 My Team career mode. This is episode number 82 today for the Miami Grand Prix for the first time in a long while on this game and in this series. So it's going to be almost like going to a brand new circuit, but of course with the emergence of two American teams now on the grid, Repsol Haas being a top team in Formula 1 these days, and Andretti Honda also on the grid. We've got an American Grand Prix back on the calendar after a while to celebrate that fact, and of course it would make a lot of sense IRL if there were two American teams on the grid to have an American GP of some kind. Of course in real life we're having multiple of them now these days. But if you did miss the previous episode at the Canadian GP, then be sure to go check that one out before you see this one, as we encountered a rather frustrating glitch with the game and a bit of a broken pit lane pit stop for us that was nearly 90 seconds long, and this was following a pretty dramatic set of events around Montreal, and unfortunately due to that frustrating slow pit lane we had to retire the car. We were like a lap down on everyone, which is not exactly ideal on a game that also doesn't have any kind of mechanic to unlap yourself if there was to be a safety car. There wasn't, so we just retired the car. Thankfully, in terms of our championship lead, Drugovich actually made a second pit stop in that race, wanting to go aggressive, and it didn't work out for him because he got caught up in a lot of traffic, and Leclerc went on to win that race, and he's now taken second place in the championship. Because he was a couple of more points back from where Drugovich was, we've not lost too much ground in that lead we had in first place, so we can just move on from that race and continue to try and do the best job we can of gaining points and seeing if wrapping up this Drivers' Championship early could be a possibility. No upgrades for any team going into this episode, so now maybe the entire grid will be done upgrading and plateauing, and we are in the period of the season where I feel like we would have already received an R&D regulation change notice, so I'm kind of curious. We'll see how it goes into the next episode or two, but I don't know, if there's not regulation change, that's going to be very peculiar, because that means then into next season things may stay the same but also change, because, you know, from season to season we've seen AI drivers maybe get a bump in performance or drop in performance, but if the cars are all similar, it means everyone's going to start super close at the start of that next season. But we're not thinking about that yet. We've still got this season to do, and we've still got both championships to try and win. And of course, last episode with my retirement and Tsunoda struggling for points, Mercedes have got back ahead in the Constructors' Championship. So maybe the Drivers' Championship, we've got one hand on it already, potentially you could say. Constructors, though, that's going to be so tough, because we have to really try and outscore both Mercedes cars, and of course just two cars in the points. It just makes life very difficult for us with only one car in it. But we'll just go out there and try our best and see where we end up. But right now here in qualifying on Saturday, very overcast conditions, but there is no rain, I don't think, forecast for this race weekend. But the start of Saturday, a bit doom and gloom. We make it through into Q2 along with Yuki Tsunoda. I was kind of concerned what the pace may be like for me as an individual here at Miami, because when we were racing at Miami at the start of this series, when this game came out, it wasn't particularly a quick circuit for me. Never really gelled with it too much, but also a large part of that was because back then the AI still had that very overpowered straight line speed kind of issue, whereas now it's a bit better, and I feel like we are somewhat competitive. We need to speed up a little bit, because it is very ferociously competitive at the top there, with both Ferraris and Repsol Haas checkerboarded from 1 to P4, but looks like Tsunoda there able to nearly match what Leclerc did, so we're in the fight there with the Mercedes cars, I hope. But I think a large challenge for me personally around Miami is just that consistency. Like, I know I can do a pretty good lap around Miami to actually qualify well, one time, but it's about consistently doing that in these sessions, and from session to session, I mean, already there getting a little bit loose on the curb in sector 1, maybe not carrying as much speed as I did in Q1 in that first sector attempt and this first flying lap. Now through the last sector, very awkward, very challenging, being reminded, to be honest, why we haven't had Miami on the calendar for some seasons now. Not exactly the most enjoyable circuit to drive, at least in the last sector. First sector is pretty flowing. If they just had more of that, then I'll be pretty damn happy. But yeah, our first lap was very worryingly not great. It's a 127 dead, so we have plenty of time to find, and you can see there in that one corner alone we found nearly 3.5 tenths, and that's the problem for me around Miami, is I just drop like 3 tenths sometimes in one corner, you know, randomly, because I haven't just taken the correct line, and I'm still, you know, getting used to the circuit really, even after having a whole game cycle on it. And it's only P10 for us right now, and that was our last flying lap. And that is unfortunately going to mean that we are knocked out in Q2. For the first time in a while, in terms of just pure pace being knocked out, not because of a penalty or anything like that, we are knocked out. Tsunoda out-qualifies me, and yeah, I mean, we did not match the lap time, the best lap time I did in Q1, and that's what I mean by that consistency. I just don't have it around this circuit like other kind of, you know, circuits we're used to having on the F1 calendar, because of course I've just not driven that many total laps around Miami, I guess, in comparison to all those kind of old familiar staples of F1. So that's the problem for me, and that problem has got us knocked out. I know we do have more pace than this, so in the race, you know, I'm hoping we can jump up positions, maybe try something a little bit different with the strategy potentially. But into Q3 then, the two Ferraris and Haas and Mercedes looking quick. Aston Martin up there. Stroll out-qualified me in an Aston Martin, just showing you a sign of the times with all the cars bunching up. Albon, Vettel make it through, and yeah, we're going to be alongside Lando Norris in the other Red Bull just outside the top 10. Let's go to Sunday. Not the best start on the back foot, but still plenty of opportunity in the race conditions. Let's go to the grid.
Welcome to the Miami International Autodrome, home of the Miami Grand Prix. This exciting track circumnavigates the Hard Rock Stadium, home to the National Football League outfit, the Miami Dolphins. Sitting at the southeastern coast of Florida, the Miami International Autodrome has 19 corners and 3.36 miles of racing. It's a circuit designed to encourage close racing while meeting the highest safety standards. Either way, I'm sure it's one that will please the fans. Off the back of a fantastic qualifying session, it's time to see how our starting grid looks like for today's race. World champion Max Verstappen starts from pole position, with Charles Leclerc alongside. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have Drugovich, Bottas, George Russell and Mick Schumacher, Stroll, Albon, Vettel and Lando Norris, the owner driver, Hülkenberg, Oscar Piastri and Sainz, Gasly, Tsunoda. They'll be starting further back after an earlier grid penalty. Kevin Magnussen and Sergio Perez, Ricciardo, Liam Lawson, Ocon and Fernando Alonso rounds off the grid. It's almost time for the lights to go out, so let's head down to the track where preparations are underway. A warm welcome to Anthony Davidson, who's beside me in the commentary box today. We should talk about Williams. What do you make of their performance so far this season?
Well, the atmosphere within that team seems very positive at the moment. Everyone seems like they're in great spirits and having a lot of fun doing what they do, and that's definitely contributed to the performances we've seen.
So 5 seasons into this career mode, and now at the forefront, it is once again all about Verstappen versus Leclerc. Ferrari versus Mercedes, though, with Verstappen in the red car and Leclerc in the silver arrow. So it may be similar to what we had IRL last season, but also completely different as well. But you may have noticed in that grid sequence, we are not just as an individual, but as a team on the back foot in terms of the constructors fight, because Tsunoda, although he got into the top 10 shootout, he has a grid penalty, so he's even further back than I am at the start of this race. We're elevated because of that to P11 on this grid. So this is going to be tough with both Mercs ahead of us. I don't know about Tsunoda. I assume he's going to find it difficult in the traffic that he's got in between myself and him. So it's down to us to go all guns blazing to try and overtake both Mercedes cars, to try and outscore them. Everyone else would just be a bonus, you know, whoever's around us basically. And to do that, we're going with a very different strategy that I've never actually tried on this game yet. But I've underfueled the car by about 0.8 on the lap counter in terms of the laps of fuel you put in at the start on the race strategy screen. So we've underfueled the car, knowing that with the fuel upgrades we've made over the course of the last 2 seasons, I'm hoping that we'll just, you know, pull back that negative fuel basically over the race distance, because I never really pay attention too much to the fuel counter now. But I always, maybe when I have seen it, we're massively over on surplus by the end of the race. So we're going really aggressive to make the car as light as possible in terms of the fuel load. And we're starting on the medium tyres, looking to go to the softs. Whereas I feel like maybe some other cars around us we're just going for a bog standard mediums to hards. A few people are starting on soft tyres. Don't know what they're going to do, but we're going to try an audacious low fuel, negative fuel at the start, and a very aggressive, fast strategy of mediums to softs to end off with. You got to do these things when you get knocked out in Q2, and hopefully it can work out for us today versus the Mercedes and the others, of course. But it's now time to start our first US GP for a long time here in this My Team series as we go to 5 red lights. Here in Miami, lights out, and we're underway. It's initially a good getaway, but others getting off the line even quicker than us. Lando Norris maybe looking to make a dive bomb on his teammate. Lance Stroll with a major lockup into turn 1. It got a bit hairy there into the apex because I didn't know how pinched in Stroll was going to get us through that right-hander, but we managed just to kind of hold our own and hold our bearings and get up into P9 actually ahead of him and Sebastian Vettel. Meanwhile at the front, Verstappen still leads the way off that pole position, but Leclerc is there right up his gearbox in second place. Leclerc has opted for the soft compounder tyre versus mediums for the most drivers around him, so Leclerc maybe looking to make a charge early on before pitting earlier in this race than anyone. As you're now watching us have a go at both Red Bull Hondas, big dive on the outside of not only them, but also Mick Schumacher going for the 3 wide move into the very tight single file section. I don't know how that was going to work out if we kept on going. Thankfully, others backed out of it, but we stayed committed, and we basically got a triple overtake done because we got Orlando tried to get on the inside of Albon, but just got completely squeezed out by all of us, and then we made the double pass into the next corner, so basically a triple overtake and 1 foul swoop, and we find ourselves in P6 already now, looking to join the back of this little train of the top 5 of Verstappen, Leclerc, Drugovich and Bottas, the 2 Repsol Haas cars, and then Russell in P5. So I think all things considered, that may be one of the best starts we've had to a Grand Prix this season, and clearly the lighter fuel car worked out for us. Also, just to be honest, just some aggressive driving in the first few turns and that move on the Red Bull and Ferrari, and now it's time to just carry on that aggression as we set a purple lap time in that clean air and close up to George Russell, and it's going to be a real tidy move on the outside of turn 1 into the next left-hander. Very tricky. We've got a tyre on the curb. I was very cautious about that, but just had confidence also in the car that it wouldn't spin on me. And now we're looking at our next overtake and lining up Valtteri Bottas. The AI really bunching up quite a bit in that final corner, which is helping us gain a bit of time in that last sector, which is actually ironically our fastest sector. To say that's the one I least enjoy, and where we got kind of caught up a little bit maybe in qualifying, but now right on the back of Valtteri Bottas, who has a bit of a power slide through the long right-hander, and now that's opened up the door for us to send it through. We're still side by side because Bottas keeps committed through that entire section. Just before the harbour area, we get him up into P4, and Bottas actually got so crossed up with his own racing line that he actually invited Russell down the inside. So yeah, but some brilliant racing with Bottas. I didn't think Bottas was actually going to stay committed through that fast left and right, but fair play to him for actually trying it. But eventually we just had way too much speed there and just overall grip, so Bottas maybe already struggling for grip himself, because not only is he power sliding, but now he's definitely going to get overtaken by Russell, and may even have Mick Schumacher hot on his heels. Ooh, Schumacher just can't quite get him. But the German in P7, he actually nicked the fast lap away from me. You may have seen just as we caught up to Bottas, showing that the entire top 7 has got some lightning pace here. So anyone in this top 7 maybe could be looking to try and get a podium, especially because here Verstappen at the top end, as Leclerc is right underneath him with DRS. Verstappen's doing a bit of a slow race, like he's trying to control the pace, and I'm surprised he's not bolted away along with Leclerc, and I'm surprised more so that Leclerc still hasn't even attempted an overtake on the soft compounder tyre. And now lap 6, it's meant that we've closed right up to him with Felipe Drugovich, and now he's struggling. Look at that. Did you see that? Leclerc's front end wobbling a bit, and now there's actually a visible gap on the minimap to Verstappen. So are Leclerc's soft tyres already going off? And if so, well, him and Mercedes have had a mare. They've really not made the most of the soft compound. They should have been ahead of Max at this stage if you want to make that work, because if they're going to pit in the next lap or two, that's a disaster in terms of they're going to have to go so long now on a set of hard tyres as we're gaining and gaining. And looking to fly by Felipe Drugovich. Leclerc opens the door up a little bit, but we're going to finish off the move on Drugovich. But Leclerc with a pretty horrendous lock-up, and that may just invite us to go round the outside. Can we hold it through? No. Don't quite have the momentum to actually send one down the inside, and if we did, I reckon Leclerc would have squeezed us into the wall. But Leclerc's struggling. He is struggling a lot on those soft tyres, and we have an opportunity all of a sudden to be up in P2. This is honestly been one of the best opening sequences of a Grand Prix we've had this season. From what was P11, wasn't it, up to P2 now on lap 6 against some very quick cars, you know, and drivers, as we've clearly seen in the last couple of episodes, as Leclerc does come in. So him and Merc, they've made a real hash of the race strategy today. They've not made the most of that tyre. I mean, to be fair, maybe they were on a worn set, because obviously Leclerc did make it through all the way into Q3, so all his softs would have been worn out. That's the thing with my strategy. The softs I'm going to are new softs, as you can see on the bottom right, and you can see clearly on the bottom right, I am still in the negative of fuel, but that is coming down. It's not minus 0.8 anymore, so the fuel is coming down nicely, so I'm not too worried about that. The only concern will be the tyre wear, because, you know, for Leclerc to only go 6 laps on worn softs is a bit concerning, but like I said, I have a new set of soft tyres, so maybe we just got to kind of, you know, have faith that they'll go the distance of about, you know, at least 10 laps, I would say, at the end of this race. Maybe 9 if we can push the mediums a bit more, but at the moment we're looking just to push the mediums past Max Verstappen as we go for a move for the race lead. We fake to the left, go to the right. Verstappen defensive into the final corner on the inside as the DRS closes. We turn it in. Verstappen's still there on the left-hand side. We're trying to get the traction before we even dare press on the battery power, as the rear tyres will scream out if you're a bit too eager through that corner at Miami. And we're still at it into turn 1. Verstappen just about ahead, but we come back at him in the second phase of that sequence of corners. It's a wonderful battle with Max Verstappen, similar to the one we had maybe at Monza, you gotta say. And Verstappen will come back at us. That Ferrari, we know it's very quick in a straight line when it's catching someone, and with DRS aided as well. And we're going to take it nice and easy into the final corner, because when you get to the inside, it's so overpowered in that corner to defend. Like, there's nothing you can really do, because if you try and stick with the car you're trying to overtake on the inside of the final corner, you'll just get squeezed into the wall. So instead, playing the patient game, going for a lunge at turn 1, and we actually scared Verstappen off the racing line there. Not every day you can say that we've made it work, and we're once again into the race lead. But Verstappen is not going to give this up, and behind they're slowly gaining on us. Drugovich, Russell, Schumacher, although Drugovich being pressurized by Russell behind. Verstappen is on the inside of us with DRS. It is all kicking off into this corner, up and down the top 5. Verstappen going the long way round. Can we find the grip to keep this side by side? Verstappen nips ahead, but we just get the momentum, and we've actually made side-by-side work through that awkward chicane and still through the next left-hander. That was ridiculous. I don't think you'll ever be seeing that IRL. But here on the game, we've made it possible, but it comes at a cost, because we both lost momentum out the corner, and all of a sudden, here comes Mick Schumacher and Drugovich as well to overtake Verstappen. Schumacher with a huge dive. He's overtaken the Haas, his teammate, and he's now attempted to overtake us in the final corner as Russell peels into the pits. So both Mercedes cars really not liking the tyre wear around Miami. Maybe they've got a setup issue that's wearing out their tyres far too much, but surprise, surprise, it's the Ferrari of Mick Schumacher now that is giving me a good old fight into the heart of Sector 1, and he's going to go right round the outside of us. He scares us off a little bit into the apex because I really wasn't sure what he was going to do because, yeah, well, actually, as I found out, he was not going to lift off. I had to be the one that was going to lift off, otherwise that would have been a pretty horrendous crash into that left-hand side wall. So instead, we play the patient game again with a Ferrari and back out of it and wait for our second opportunity to re-overtake Mick Schumacher on the inside before Sector 3. But my oh my, what an insane development this has been. Schumacher, look, he's still side by side with me. Where's he come from? He was down in P7 and now he's the lead Ferrari. And what's happened to Verstappen? Because there's quite a big gap now as Verstappen, I think, maybe had to defend against Bottas. And then look at Drugovich. So it's Bottas is the lead Repsol Haas because Drugovich is down to P5. Now I can confirm this is actually because Drugovich, we've been told, has some sort of issue. Our engineer told us he has some sort of issue slowing him down, that kind of classic mechanical issue that the AI can have that slow them down for a few laps. So Drugovich's race is being impeded at the moment as we continue to defend Mick Schumacher, and Bottas behind is having a go at Verstappen in the background into turn 1. I think Bottas actually got him. So we know the two Mercedes cars clearly having tyre wear issues. Drugovich's got a car issue. But what's happened to Verstappen there? Because all of a sudden now he's down in P4 and he's actually fallen away from Bottas. He's 1 second or so behind Bottas and miles away now from this P1 fight that his teammate now has taken over from. So yeah, the Ferrari's basically just swapped who was involved in this battle with me. We're still fighting a Ferrari, but it's Schumacher, and he gets us into that final corner again with the inside move. That is very hard to actually defend and attack against, so we have to just be patient once more as we now look to make a pass on the main kind of back straight in kinks into the last sector, but we're not quite close enough yet behind Bottas there. P3, Verstappen confirmation P4, but look at that, he's now 2 seconds behind Bottas. Where is the pace gone for Max Verstappen? And then Drugovich, his car issue is so poor that Lance Stroll and the Aston Martin and Vettel and the Audi are catching up to him, whilst we look at, this is where Leclerc is, so he's already made his pit stop, remember, so he's not too far away from us, so he's actually going to be pretty competitive in this race. Leclerc is, as we now try and go for a move to re-overtake P1. What a pass that might be, as Schumacher wasn't giving us any room to work with there, much like his dad sometimes with other drivers in the past in Formula 1, as Schumacher squeezes another driver right to the wall. That was very dicey as we now watch Lance Stroll overtaking the Repsol Haas. The Aston Martin is into the top 5 legitimately right now in Miami. They're going to be loving that. They've come good just at the right time at one of the most PR-driven circuits and places on Earth. What a PR move this would be for Aston Martin to show up into the points with a big P5 maybe, but there's still so long to go in this race, and others have already made their pit stops as Vettel makes a stunning move into that fast left hander on Drugovich, adding insult to misery for Felipe Drugovich. That car issue is really hampering him as we now watch Leclerc come through turn 1, and he has come out ahead of everyone else who has made a pit stop off those medium tyres onto hard. So it's Leclerc from Schumacher, Bottas. Lando Norris has popped up in P5. I don't know where he's come from. The Red Bull was down in like P9 in the opening lap, so all of a sudden Norris is in between Bottas and Russell, so he's done pretty amazing on that undercut then, I must say, for the Red Bull. And Verstappen, well, he was so slow at the end of that medium tyre stint of his that he's come out behind Russell and is being attacked by Carlos. What's happened to Verstappen? What's going on? Unless like he has a similar car issue to Drugovich and I just didn't hear it on the radio. That's the only explanation I have, or maybe just really poor race pace and tyre management for him. I don't know what's happening right now, but Sainz is going to carve out this move and force it through to get up into P7. What an overtake by Carlos Sainz in the Audi versus the Ferrari. And there's Drugovich still struggling and just about holding back Albon, Hulkenberg and Pierre Gasly. Meanwhile, Tsunoda Yeah, like I thought, he's just stuck in traffic this entire race, and he's still down there in P15 as we now watch Bottas have a go at Mick Schumacher. And this is for first dibs to go chasing after Leclerc, remember. Bottas sweeps around the outside and shows the Repsol Haas is still not over in this fight. Drugovich may be out, but Bottas is still going and looks mighty quick as Schumacher tries to make a move into turn 1, hustling and harrying Bottas, and now it's slow! Oh no! Oh, Schumacher's slow! Oh, it's a travesty! It's a disaster for Ferrari, and that's just tragic. That's painful. Schumacher deserved better. He could have been on for a podium today. Poor Mick Schumacher. That's just Ferrari things, isn't it? They're just, you know, even with a quick car this season, they've still not managed to get a win. And I don't think they will be today, because the only car left in this race for them is Verstappen, and he's been caught by Lance Stroll and Vettel. So it's going from bad to worse for Ferrari all round as we now watch Leclerc coming into the pits for a second time. Oh, it's a disaster for Merc. What's that? Every one of our competitors today has had a howler. Mercedes with such poor tyre wear and such a poor strategy. They've gone soft, medium, and then another set of mediums because they went too early on the first pit stop, so they definitely couldn't take those mediums all the way. Meanwhile, Russell did go longer. He's on hard, so he's up into P4, so you can't even say it's Leclerc. It's more Mercedes strategy. Why haven't they put Leclerc on the same strategy as Russell? Because Leclerc's the man second in the championship. It just makes no sense at all, as Drugovich now has been overtaken by Hulkenberg, by the way. He's now fending off Albon, but both Aston Martins are in the points. And meanwhile, with all of this going on, we've just been out in P1 still on the same set of mediums, taking these tyres as long as we can to give ourselves the best opportunity on the soft compound at the end of the race. A fresh set of softs, I might add. And so we wait till lap 20. We've taken these tyres an absolute age into this race, and only at the moment where I got the orange icon on the bottom right did I say box in this lap. Because I just thought, you know, I could go earlier onto the softs, but why risk it? I've got okay pace on the mediums. Let's just stretch it out. Let's relax. Let's try and put some consistent laps in, which have been getting better and better for me around here in Miami as we do more and more laps in this Grand Prix. And now, on lap 21, with 8 laps to go, we've got a fresh set of soft tyres coming just behind Russell in P4. But now, I thought we were going to have to chase after Leclerc for P1 because he was a couple of seconds ahead of Bottas. But now he's out of the Grand Prix, so all I've got to do is catch up to Bottas, and we've won the race. And I always thought we were going to have Bottas. In terms of the time we've got left in this Grand Prix, the pace we're going to have, and the lack of pace they're going to have on the mediums and hards as we overtake Russell after a little bit of, argy-bargy there as Russell tried to defend with all his might, but it's futile. We get past him and show how quick these soft tyres are, and now we're going to go chasing after these two, Bottas and Lando Norris in P2. All of a sudden, Norris has ended up in a podium position in the Red Bull Honda. I don't know how he's done it. If someone wants to let me know how on earth he ended up there, because I don't. He was solidly in P9 where Albon is, and he's somehow pulled off a blinder to be up in P2 at the moment. And behind us at the sharp end, there's a big train forming behind Verstappen of Stroll, Vettel, Leclerc, and Drugovich. So Leclerc and Drugovich both have had their own respective issues in this race. Leclerc with a 2-stop, Drugovich with a slow car with a mechanical issue. He's now speeding back up, and Verstappen is not. So I don't think Verstappen's got the same sort of car issue that Drugovich did, because he's consistently just been slow this entire race, as Leclerc now pulls off a biblical little move on Sebastian Vettel. Look at them go side by side through that entire section, and Leclerc, foot to the floor, probably peeved off by his strategy, up into P8. But I can't comprehend what happened with Verstappen, because it's clearly not the same sort of AI mechanical issue that Drugovich got, because it would have been solved by now, because Drugovich is back up to full pace and he's caught these guys back up and he's trying to attack them. But Verstappen, ever since Schumacher, you know what? Ever since Schumacher overtook him on that straight, on this very straight here, he's just been so slow. Like, what? It's just like an implosion. Like, Schumacher had a DNF, engine issue. Is Verstappen just nursing an engine issue that we don't know about, that my engineer hasn't told us about? Who knows? It's a complete mystery. And once again, Ferrari's race unravels as we are now onto the back of the top two. Norris and Bottas setting the fast lap of the Grand Prix, of course, on a set of fresh, soft tyres versus everyone else. And now it's a case of when are we going to do this, not if, as Norris is struggling for some rear-end grip. Can we maybe go on the inside? We're going to think better of it and just stamp on the brake pedal because Norris was very, very committed through that corner. So I thought instead we'll just embarrass him actually and just go down the inside here. Such a weird place to make an overtake, but such is the grip difference of the soft compound to his set of worn medium tyres. We just flew by him on the inside. And behind, Leclerc continues to fly as he looks to try and overtake Lance Stroll now in his charge back up this grid on that two-stop. Drugovich maybe looking to make an overtake on Vettel as he also tries to come back in this race after previous early issues, both with DRS on their respective targets. Drugovich, a bit wobbly on the front end, but he's going to dive down the inside and almost actually made contact with Leclerc's rear wing, but he's up into P9. And this is what I mean. Drugovich had an AI mechanical issue that your engineer tells you about, but he's now clearly fine. But Verstappen's just been slow the entire race. So, yeah, mystifying stuff. But for us, we're now closing up to the other Epsil Haas of Bottas, almost pushing him through the final corner. Such is the grip difference. And on to lap 25 as the clouds roll in. There was a few more laps in this race. There may have been some rain in this Grand Prix, but we've got 4 laps to go. Bottas tries to put up a fight, but we just have too much overwhelming grip round the outside. And we're up into P1 of the Miami GP. And to be honest, unless we face our own disaster, a puncture, our own engine failure or what, I think we may have a race win in the bag. But as for who's going to be in P2 and 3 respectively, that has not been decided yet because Norris is trying to have a go at Bottas. The two onto lap 26 side by side into turn 1. Bottas just nips ahead of the Red Bull car, and behind, oh, what's happened here? Lance Stroll has emerged at the final corner up in P5. He's overtaken Verstappen. Verstappen's down 2 positions. He's had a mare. He's been overtaken by Leclerc and the Aston Martin of Lance Stroll, and now is feeling pressure from maybe Felipe Drugovich, but Leclerc is now continuing to try and overtake the Aston, but he's still not been able to. A couple of laps now he's been stuck behind this Aston Martin. This could be an amazing day for them as Vettel actually re-overtakes Drugovich and catches him napping. The 6-time reigning world champion of this season, remember, showing he's still not going down without a fight here. But can Leclerc finally get the Aston Martin, or can Stroll pull off a mountainous task of defending him? I think he can, as he has done for all those previous laps, and he will continue to do so until the last lap of the Grand Prix. It's an amazing day for Aston Martin. Both cars are in the points as Hulkenberg's P10, Drugovich P9, behind Vettel, who obviously we saw overtake him. And now on the final lap, could Vettel go and do one more and maybe overtake Verstappen to push the man who was on pole position down to P8 at the end of this race? This is it, into the last sector. Vettel with DRS on the inside. The Audi lunges through. Verstappen just comes back at him to maybe keep on to the P7, but Vettel gave it a good old push. But yeah, ahead of them, Leclerc staring at the back of the Aston Martin, and he can't get him. Lance Stroll P5, amazing result for him. Amazing result for Lando Norris, in P3 for Red Bull. But for us, it's P1. It's another race win this season, and this one might be the best yet. From the worst qualifying we've had in a while to possibly one of the best races we've driven this entire series. Low fuel, very alternate strategy, and we just made everything work and made all the overtakes count.
And that's the checkered flag. What an amazing victory in what has been a great Miami Grand Prix. Tell me, Ant, how do you think they were able to deliver such an incredible result today?
I think the key here was just the quality of the racecraft, you know? I mean, how many overtakes did they make overall? I'm sure we have a stat person keeping score somewhere, and it's fantastic to watch, wasn't it? This is a strategic sport at the end of the day, but it's always really gratifying to see close-fought battles on track. It's what all the fans are after.
Here comes your top three making their way down to the podium for what can only be described as a fantastic day for Formula One.
It's not only a race win to just enjoy because of what it is, it's also an important one for the Constructors' Championship fight because Tsunoda didn't score today. Both Mercedes ended up scoring some points, so even with Leclerc, you know, with that 2-stop, he recovered well, so both of them combined together will have a good points haul. So important for us to maximise points today to try and actually, you know, chip away at Mercedes' lead in the Constructors' standings. But for us as a driver, it's another notch to add on to the season, and it's probably the best one yet. I mean, yeah, I think the low strategy, the low fuel strategy worked wonders at the start to make our car very light compared to everyone else, and then we managed the tyres, the mediums, so well to just give us, like, you know, so many laps of just pure pushing on the soft compound to have no issue of getting up into first place. And so now we leave Miami with the largest gap we've had ever in the season so far to Leclerc in second place. And Constructors, we bring down the gap to only 3 points. So despite me being the only driver to score points for our team and Mercedes having 2 guys in high points, we still actually made up ground on Mercedes. And if we have another race like this, we could get ourselves back into the lead in Constructors' Championship. So race wins are going to be important this season for us. But individually speaking, obviously it's also just amazing as well. I mean, that race felt great. It felt like we were absolutely just driving our absolute best. We had everything nailed down. The only kind of times where I felt, oh, okay, this might be a bit tough is maybe when the Ferraris were giving us a real good fight, but, you know, they just fell away. So, and Leclerc, who I thought we were going to be racing at the end of the race, was doing a 2-stop. So we didn't even see him that much in this Grand Prix. So, yeah, very weird way how it all shaked out. But guys, if you have enjoyed that Miami GP, the first one in a while, to be honest, actually, it was a very nice return to Miami. Like, if the races were like that all the time, I would definitely have Miami back on the calendar consistently. But yeah, maybe just the maxed out cars finally unlocking Miami's potential. But yeah, if you did enjoy it, hit the like button. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. If you're around here, then do get subscribed for weekly Formula One content. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.